The other big thing I wanted to ask you about was your original screenplay for Rambo 3. I know you talk
Yeah.
about it a little bit in the
Right.
novelization. Um, can you give us any more of what happened? Of
Well,
like the
sure.
story?
It's not. It's not. It was set in. So and this is in. I think in Rambo in the when Rambo 3 comes out, there'll be material about this in there. But I don't mind talking about it.
Thank you.
I the concept was that Rambo would it was set in South America, and you have to realize in those days in the 1980s the Central and South America was a hotbed of American involvement to do with dictatorships and revolutionaries, and there was a very famous, nobody thinks about it anymore, in which the then American, the President Ronald Reagan and his presidency had provided arms to a rebellious group in, I believe it was Central America, by going the long run through the Mideast, as I recall it was through Israel. So we paid Israel to supply arms to rebels in Central America so that there wouldn't be any record of it in congressional hearings. And it was a major scandal when it was uncovered, and there were all kinds of hearings about it, and nobody thinks about it anymore. But at the time, it was pretty dramatic. And anyhow, lots of stuff was going on down there. And the idea was that Colonel Troutman, would have been a military advisor to one of these groups, and that he would have been captured by the opposition, and that basically that an embassy would have been taken over. And Rambo in the United States, there's always a question of what he's going to be, and whether it was the right choice or not. He was working on tall buildings. He was the guy who worked at the very tallest part of the tallest building under construction, and that it was very, very mystical to see him up there, and that he had no fear of heights. But he found out about what had happened and immediately set out. And it would be tedious to go through the entire plot, but the idea was that it was another rescue story with Rambo. That's not exactly an original thing, but it's what the production company wanted. And for me, the most interesting thing is that Rambo would have been helped by Troutman's wife, who was a military wife and knew as much about weapons as anybody else. And that the two of them would have set out to save him. And there was a big discussion with the production company that there was no way they were going to allow this to happen, that it had to be Rambo by himself, and that nobody would believe that a woman would be able to handle weapons that way, et cetera, et cetera. How far we've come.
You could imagine like a Sigourney Weaver kind of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and what's so interesting is that not many years later, Sigourney Weaver, in fact, became the prototype for the woman warrior in Aliens, and not the first one, but the second one. So, I always thought of it as a lost opportunity. That's, stuff happens. They decided that Afghanistan was hotter than Central America in terms of politics and getting attention, so they did Rambo of Arabia instead.
If you ever find pages from that, let me know, please.
I have pages of it. There are problems. It's so much of its time, that. And anyway, when you do that, when you write a script, even if it's from a character that I created, it's work for hire. That's the term, and the company, they're no longer in business, but regardless, Carolco Pictures owned that script
Yeah.
and the rights to it, so I could never like print it. I could never put it in a book because it isn't mine. It's a peculiarity of the way Hollywood works.
But man, it sounds fascinating. Just that angle, just that whole angle sounds fascinating. Well, I was talking to some of the guys on Slycast who are big fans of the Rambo franchise. Well, everything Sly, but they did all these amazing Rambo reviews. So I was talking with them about that, and they were fascinated. They were like, "Wow!" If they were trying to get their heads around what that could have looked like, what that could have been like.
Yeah.
That whole amazing stuff.
There were, just as there were 26 scripts for First Blood, different scripts. So, for all I know, there were a lot of other scripts that were written that I wasn't told about for Rambo 2 and Rambo 3. So Hollywood is, the producers don't like anybody else to know what's going on. So there's a lot of secretiveness and compartmentalization.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty exciting. I spent 2 days with the Carolco people. I knew Mario Passar and Andrew Vigneault. I knew Andy better than I knew Mario. But we spent time together, and I was often in their offices. And I really liked the guys, and it was a very exciting time. But there were that was a critical moment. I don't care for the third movie as it turned out because it's repetitive. Rambo, Troutman is kidnapped, captured, fine. Rambo tries to rescue him and fails. Rambo tries to rescue him and succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
And by definition, if you look at it, it's repetitive. Mm-hmm. And that's why when I did the novelization, I invented a new third act for the story that would, have a more epic feel to it.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that the other day. I had my niece's boyfriend was over here. We were actually watching. I had a gentleman from the UK, Mr. Mike Chapman, sent me a fan edit of Rambo 3 that had all the deleted scenes in it and stuff. So we were sitting down watching that, and we were actually going over that it was kind of like a wasted opportunity. That it's like Rambo fails, Rambo succeeds, when they could have added a lot more in. Yeah. Like I was telling them about, like the scene when Rambo's coming into the camp with Musa, and Musa says, "This is the only doctor for 500 miles," and you only see that character for 2 seconds. And I was telling him that it was so wasted that they took the character of Michelle out. From the novelization of Rambo 3. I think her name was Michelle, the nurse. The French,
yeah. The nurse is huge. She's a French doctor, and she's huge in the novelization, and she's virtually non-existent in the film. But in the first draft of the script, she had a marvelous part. Mm-hmm. And what I was seeing, in a way this happened with Rambo First Blood Part 2, what I was seeing was these really, really interesting scripts that got chopped down with each draft, and stuff got thrown away that was really interesting, and I never knew why. But I had the material to work with so that people could have seen the movies they could have made. Yeah. And I'm not complaining. I like First Blood. It's different, but I'm very impressed. The second movie I'm impressed with for different reasons. As pure action, as almost a Saturday afternoon serial, along the lines of Indiana Jones. The third one is, by any standard, is not a good film because of the repetition that I talked about. But stuff happens.
Yeah, it's a shame too because it was shot so beautifully, like the camera, like the lens.
Oh my God! They were trying to make Rambo overrated. They were. Yeah. The budget on that was huge for the time, and there were scenes where stuff was going on here, and there were horsemen on a middle range back here, and then there were more horsemen or camels or something far away. I mean, they had figures miles in the distance that they were shooting. It was big, but a lot of it, never showed up on the screen.
Like it brings you back to those 70 millimeter, like the 70 millimeter
Well,
filmmaking.
that's